Thank you, Tim, so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good man. Good man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we just had an amazing day. I was in a different part of the state, and we had some incredible people. And I love the people of South Carolina. This is a special love. I have to show you. So it's just to tell you about the press. Now, he knows about the press. Tim knows. And by the way, was I one of your first supporters ever? And maybe your first?
You certainly were.
Before he was, who knows, before he became this big shot, right?
You were.
And you know what? I feel very well justified. We're proud of Tim, that I can tell you.
Thank you, sir.
So, we just got these poll numbers and doing great in South Carolina, 39%. Do you believe this? 39. And second, I won't tell you who, but second is 20, and then they go down to 11. I mean, we're doing pretty well. We have to get, if we could call for the election tomorrow. You know, in some countries, you can call for the election. Let's do it. Do it tomorrow. And one of the other things I was explaining to Tim before, because it's sort of funny, the big headline in Florida, Rubio, who, by the way, has the highest in the entire Senate. Maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but he missed more days than anybody else in the Senate. So listen to this. Rubio passes Bush in Florida poll. Now, this is the headline. Nice, right? People are happy about that. I'm even happy about that, but that's fine. Rubio passes Bush in Florida poll. I said, oh, that's too bad. I thought I'd do great in Florida. So that's your headline. And then I read the story. Donald Trump is leading 31.5. Can you believe it? No, it's crazy. Rubio is at 19.2 and Bush is 11.3. They don't even put me in the headline and I'm crushing it. So you'll all figure that out. The press is very dishonest. Not all of it, but much of it. I just want to say it's an honor to be here. And Tim asked me to be, and I tell you what, he's a special person. And anytime he wants me to come to South Carolina, I'm here. And if you, I mean it. And he's going to grill me now. You know, this is, I said, am I supposed to make a speech? He said, no, this is question and answer. I said, good, that's easy. I like that better. But let's see how tough. I hope he's not going to be like Mike Wallace of the old days, right? So let's sit down. Thank you all very much. Great. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Donald, you know, it's always exciting to have celebrities with us, and I have my most important celebrity sitting on the front row. And my mom is here with us tonight, Frances.
Oh, beautiful. Hello, Frances. Oh, she did a good job. She did a good job. Look at this guy.
I am blessed with her. I am blessed with her. Well, as you know, Donald, the way that this works is I ask questions from the audience members who've presented and submitted the questions. So my goal is to make sure that we get through as many of these questions as possible. Okay. But we're not looking for sound bites. We're looking for thorough answers.
Good.
So we'll start with a question from Samantha Bailey, who's with us tonight. And she says, other than immigration, when you look at the challenges that we face in this country, what would be 3 other priorities that you would have?
Okay. We have to get rid of at least some of the debt, if not all. We're up to $19 trillion, and we have a country that's in serious strife. I want to get rid of Obamacare. We want to repeal it. And we want to replace it. We want to replace it with something terrific, and we have a lot of options. There's so many options. And I don't know if you see, your premiums are going through the roof, right? I mean, they're going through the roof. They're up 40, 50%. One person said to me yesterday, 55%. And I think a third thing, Tim, could be the military. We want to build up the military as part of that. And I say it all the time. I think it'll be my strength. You know, everyone says jobs will be my strength, and I think that will be. CNN did a poll. I was through the roof on jobs and leadership, and a little bit less when it came to personality. Can you believe it? But I said, what difference does it make? We got to win. We have to win a little bit. The other thing so important is the military, and very, very important at taking care of our vets. Our vets are treated like third class citizens. The illegals that come in, the illegal immigrants, in many cases, you go to California, they're getting driver's licenses, they're being taken care of better than our vets. That's not going to happen if I win. That I can tell you.
Thank you. There are so many people who have had the same question. I know one, Odette from Hanahan, and others had a similar question on the issue of immigration. Securing our borders, without any question, is one of your top priorities that we've heard you talk about. I'd also ask you, go into a little depth about how would you secure the border?
Okay.
What are a couple of things that you would do to secure the border?
Good.
And what do you think about our legal immigration problem?
Good. So this is one of my favorite questions because, you know, if you remember when I announced 3 months ago that I was running, I made statements and everyone thought it was wonderful. But then about a week later, Rush Limbaugh said, nobody has ever received so much incoming. I had never heard the word. Incoming means the press. And I brought up illegal immigration. It turned out I was right. You had so many problems with crime, and you have so much. You have Kate, Kate in San Francisco was such a shame, shot in the back by somebody over here 5 times, 6 times. I don't even know how many times, probably forced out. But you have Kate, you have Jamil, you have a woman 2 weeks ago in California was 66-year-old veteran, a veteran, raped, sodomized, and killed by an illegal immigrant. And you have thousands of these cases. It's a horrible problem. You have the drugs flowing across the border, and you have our money flowing out. You know, we get the drugs, they get the money. And frankly, I think that, you know, Tim's bringing that up as the second question. A lot of times it's the first question. If I weren't involved, if I weren't in this campaign, if I were sitting in New York doing nothing right now, which would be easy, and a lot of people said, why would he ever run? He's got like this nice life, but we want to make America great again. And it's so important. But I think if I didn't run, you wouldn't even be asking the question on immigration, because it was a question that nobody was even thinking about. Nobody was even thinking about. And I watch these politicians, we're excluding Tim, by the way, but I watch these politicians, and they're all talk, they're no action, nothing would ever happen. Believe me, we're going to have a strong border. We're going to have a wall, not a wall where you buy a ladder that's 10 feet and you go over the top. This is going to be a wall, and it's going to come in at the right cost, and Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Believe me, Mexico's going to pay for the wall. And just to finish, I love Mexico. I love the Mexican people. The Mexican leadership is too smart for our leadership. They're cunning, they're sharp, they're smart. We have people that don't know what they're doing. And we are going to have great negotiators that know what they're doing. And we're going to make fair deals. Right now, I was telling Tim before, I asked some of my people, go back, what is the trade deficit, as an example, with Mexico? It's like $45 billion. $45 billion. And then they say, oh, you can't get $45 billion? We can get them to pay for it. Believe me, anybody in this audience, as a messenger, can do that. What's the trade deficit with China? It's almost $400 billion a year. $400 billion. What's the deficit with Japan? It's almost $70 billion. Are we crazy? That won't happen with Trump, believe me.
Jim Burwell, I think he's here with us. Are you here, Jim? Over here. Jim has a question about energy. Right now we're experiencing some pretty low prices, but the fact of the matter is that for the average person in the country, especially those living close to or in poverty, their energy costs represent about 25% of their paychecks.
It's a tremendous number.
And so the question is, what would you do as our president to manage our energy as a nation to make sure that we have responsible prices and that the average person in this country thinks less about the price at the pump?
So we can really be the energy capital of the world. I mean, we have so much through technology. We had no idea that we were sitting on the kind of resources that we are actually on. And with proper work and and I've been saying for a long time, $30 to $40. People have heard me when it was going at 100. I was saying it should be 30, it should be 25, it should be 40, and that's what's going to turn out to be true. You know, we had a case where hundreds of ships were out at sea, loaded up, they had so much oil, they never knew what to do with it. But now what's happening is the OPEC is being broken up, the monopoly is being broken up, and things can happen that'll be great with respect to energy. But we have to help people out. The people that really bear the brunt of energy and energy costs are the very poor people. And I've heard numbers that 25 and 20%, and we will do that. One of the things we're going to do is get energy prices down even further. And the oil companies won't be thrilled. Lots of people won't be thrilled that are in that business, but energy should be coming down actually a lot further, and I think it will.
Good. Barry Walker from Irmo and Scott Williams, both here somewhere in the audience, had very similar questions about how to make America great again economically. I know that next Thursday you're coming out with your plan from an economic perspective. If you were to give us a glimpse of what we can expect from Trump in the White House for reviving jobs in America, what would that look like?
So my whole life, I've been working to build a great company. I built a truly great company, some of the great assets of the world, Doral, Turnberry in Scotland, Trump Tower. I mean, so many great assets, 40 Wall Street, opposite the New York Stock Exchange, many, many iconic and wonderful assets. And I built a net worth that's over $10 billion with tremendous cash flow, with very little debt, and it's an amazing company. And I will tell you that we have to do that now. Other people have to go out. They have to do it. They have to, you know, you need the American dream. And I talk about this all of the time. And again, the press, I'm afraid to say, and I never say, the American dream is dead, because they always cut me off. I say the American dream is dead, but we're going to make it bigger and better and stronger than ever before. And my wife comes home, I say, what's wrong? She's like very upset. I say, what's wrong? You shouldn't say the American dream is dead. That's too harsh. I said, you're right, but I didn't say that. I said the American dream is dead, but we're going to make it bigger and better and stronger than ever before. So I turn on the television, TiVo. It's nice to be able to see what happened 20 minutes ago, right?
Yeah.
I turn on, and they have Trump. The American dream is dead. And I get cut. I say, wow, that's terrible. Look, we're going to make the American dream, we're going to bring it back. We're going to bring it back so that people can really dream again. I have so many people saying that you can't do this anymore. You can't build these great companies anymore. You can't even build small businesses because of regulation. And I mean, I could name hundreds of bills. You look at the regulations that you have to go through to even put up a house, let alone do a business. And we can get rid of probably 75% of the regulations, and in many ways more than that. So we're going to bring the American dream back to this country. We're going to create jobs because we're going to take them back from China, and we're going to take them back from Japan, and we're going to get along with China and Japan. What people don't realize, you know, we don't have our negotiators. We have people that are political hacks. We have people that gave contributions and they get jobs in the government. You know, I'm self-funding, by the way. I don't know if I get any credit for this. I don't know if I get credit, right? I really don't. I feel foolish. People come, they want to give millions of dollars to my campaign. I say, I'm not taking it. I really don't. I feel foolish. You know, it's just like sort of, it's not the way my mind works, right? Guy wants to give me millions of dollars. I sort of take it. I'm supposed to. So I feel a little bit foolish. I don't know if I'm self-funding. I'm the only one that's self-funding. All of these other people, and you know, I'm finding the PACs. These PACs, it's ridiculous. They're controlling the politicians. The PACs are controlling the politicians. I think it's terrible. And people are putting now money into the PACs, millions, and they don't like Trump. I have all these ads against me, paid for a PAC, and the candidate, of course, doesn't know about it. Yeah, right? They put their best friend in charge of the PAC, they put their lawyer in charge of the PAC, and they never, ever speak. I got to tell you, it's disgraceful, and they're breaking the laws, but the PACs are now controlling everything. And the people that contribute to the PACs are really on they're on a razor edge, but the candidates are being controlled by the PACs. I'm self-funding. I'm putting up my own money. When I fly here, I'm paying for it 100%. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. I do say one thing. And I always preface it by saying, however, I love the tiny, I have a woman contributed like $7.40 with a 3-page letter. I have people that do contribute to my campaign. It's not a lot of money, but I love where the worst thing I could do is send back small amounts of money. So we accept small amounts of money because they're investing in the campaign, but they're investing for the good of the country. They're not investing millions of dollars where they want to, you understand what I'm saying. Frankly, and I was saying to somebody, people are giving 100, 200, 500. If I sent back those checks, we don't want your money, it's almost insulting in a certain way. But those are the people that love the country. The people that give millions of dollars, of which I've been one over the years. I mean, nobody knows the system better than I do, folks, I must tell you. That's why I'm coming at it, he knows, I'm coming at it from a point of advantage. Because I was on the system, and the system's a tough system. And when somebody's giving millions of dollars to a politician or a PAC, and when that politician's in office, and they want something done, they're not thinking about the good of the country. They're thinking about the good of that donor, especially if they're not finished running for office again. So I'm the only person, I'm the only one running, to the best of my knowledge, that's self-funding, and that's the way I want to keep it. Thank you. Thank you.
Haley Mitchum from Spartanburg has a question. As we look at our foreign policy and, frankly, the failure of our foreign policy, the so-called red line in Syria,
terrible,
leading from behind, is, in my opinion, has contributed to the Syrian refugee challenge that we have. If you were our president, how would you address the Syrian refugee issue?
So this is an interesting, because I know a lot about Syria, I know a lot about what's happening, and I have a good chance. I mean, based on all the polling, I have a very good chance of winning. I hate to give all this information out. Does that make sense? You know, can you imagine General MacArthur, General Patton, here's what we're going to do. In the case of Syria, we're going to, first of all, you have Syria, you have Russia now going into Syria. You have Russia wanting to fight ISIS. Let them fight ISIS. Let them fight them. And Tim may disagree with us. I can understand that. So Russia wants to fight because they don't want ISIS coming into Russia. They have an obligation to fight them in a certain way, as much or more than we do. The other thing you have is Syria, Assad, is our enemy, okay? ISIS is our enemy. They want to fight together. But we're going in bombing Syria, bombing very weakly. You know, we're very timid. We're not doing it. If we're going to win, you got to win. We're bombing. And Assad is probably saying, these people are the nicest people in the world. They're knocking out our enemy. So you'd almost say, ISIS, let them fight Assad. Russia, let them fight ISIS. We'll take care of Iraq, which, and by the way, in 2003, 2004, I was totally against going. I am the most militaristic person in this room. I believe I'm going to have a military so strong, nobody's going to mess with us. And you've heard me say that. Nobody. Nobody. But you've got to know when to use it and when not to use it. We went into Iraq, and I said, a big article in 2004, July, in Reuters. I said, don't go into Iraq. Don't do it. You're making a mistake. Because you have Iran and Iraq, and they were like the same in terms of strength, in terms of military, in terms of strength. And for years and years and years, they fight, right? And they go this way, this way, this way, but they counter each other. Now we've knocked the hell out of Iraq, and Iran is taking over. And it's exactly, I wish you people in the room would go pick up Reuters 2004. I said the following. If you destroy Iraq, which we did, we just wiped it out militarily and every other way. They're very weak, obviously, and very dishonest, by the way. The government of Iraq, nobody even knows they take the money. And they are right now talking to Iran. It's going to be a merger. We spent, by the way, $2 trillion. Thousands of lives lost, thousands. And by the way, on both sides, unbelievable amount of lives lost, but thousands of American lives lost, and wounded warriors who I love all over the place, right? We have nothing. We have absolutely nothing. And what I said is that if you do this to Iraq, you're going to destabilize the Middle East, and Iran is going to take over Iraq and other people will take over the leftovers. Well, ISIS is taking over the leftovers. That's what we have. It all came out of Iraq. ISIS came out of Iraq. But then I say, I ask these questions, and they're saying, what would you do? Like Tim just asked. And I'm sort of saying, like, I don't want the enemy to know. You know the word unpredictable? Somebody wrote an article about me a few weeks ago. It was a really good article. It was a business article. And one of my opponents said, Donald Trump is totally unpredictable. It was actually meant to be a compliment. because I beat them on something good. I love to win. Don't we love that? I love to win. Anyway, I beat this group. And they said he's a totally unpredictable person. And I said, that's actually a great compliment. You want to be unpredictable. You don't want to be sitting here telling Tim tonight, well, here's what I do. I'd go here, I'd go there, and let him not know what you're going to do, right? Don't you think so? I think it's terrible. And here's what happens. Then I get these lightweights like Rubio. He gets up and he says, well, Donald Trump didn't talk about foreign policy. I don't want to tell too much. You know, I don't want to tell too much. I told the story. You know, he's right, he's fighting, but he's been saying, well, he doesn't know. These guys sit in the Senate, even though he misses most of the votes, by the way. But he sits in the Senate. He listens to this stuff all the time. I'm out working, producing jobs all over the place, and building a great company. But here's the thing. I don't want to talk too much about what I'm going to do. And then the press comes out and say, well, he wasn't specific. Hey, I went to the best school. I went to an Ivy League school. I was like a good student. Everything was good. They talk about not specific. You don't want to be too specific. You don't want the enemy to hear what you're doing. And, you know, when I see Obama get up and say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. We're going to drone. And they drone somebody. They knock out a middle-level accounting person from ISIS. No, it's true. And they have a news conference. We knocked out some guy, blah, 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 like the biggest thing in the world. Now everyone else runs for cover. You don't want to talk about it. You want to knock out 100 of them before you start talking. You know, there's too much talk. There's no action. And you know, just to finish, and I take heat. First of all, I'm much smarter than any of these talking heads. You know, the talking heads that you see on television, they're all a bunch, I mean, 90% are morons. But they'll say, Donald Trump is short on policy. I don't want to talk about policy having to do with that. By the way, but speaking about policy, I'll be putting a tax plan in next week that will be very long on policy and will be a great plan with a major reduction in taxes for the middle class. You watch. Because that's what we have to do. We have to help our middle class. Our middle class built this country. We have to help our middle-income people. We have to do it, and I think they're going to be very helpful. And I think corporations are going to be happy. I think it's going to be a great plan for incentivizing people to really go out and do a great job. So you'll see it sometime next week.
Well, Donald, you are now talking Matt Schillinger's language. Matt from Columbia had a very specific question on your plan to help the middle class. So you would suggest that your tax plan that will be unveiled next week will provide some specificity.
It's going to be a big, oh yeah, it's going to be very specific. And I think it's a plan that's going to create great incentives. And I think it's going to be a plan that's going to make people happy, other than maybe the hedge fund guys who make hundreds of millions of dollars. They pay very little tax. I mean, those guys will not exactly love me. Some of my friends, some of my enemies. I think they're all going to be my enemies. But actually, you know the truth? I think they're going to end up doing better, too, because everything's going to be better. Everything's going to be better. We're going to produce jobs. We're going to bring back, I don't know if you know what corporate inversion is, but corporate inversion, you have companies that want to leave the United States because the taxes are too high. That's not going to happen anymore. We're going to have a great plan. You know, you have probably $2.1 to $2.5 trillion sitting outside, and you know about this.
Repatriation.
And they can't get the money back in. Yeah. Because Tim will tell you, the taxes are too high.
Absolutely.
You have these corporations where they have billions of dollars. Think of it, $2.1 to $2.5 trillion that should be in this country, but the companies can't bring the money in. So you know what they do? They go out. They leave the country to get their money, and also they get lower taxes and lots of other things. So the corporate inversion, I believe, will stop. The Democrats wanted to put a law against it. You can't put a law against it. It doesn't work that way. The corporations will stay in this country. They're going to bring their money back at a very reasonable cost, and they're going to put that money to work in this country. And it's so easy. And the thing that bothers me is the Democrats agree, the Republicans agree. You know that. Everybody agrees. They've been talking about it for 3 years, and it never gets done.
And no doubt, the value of the repatriation,
right.
Repatriating $2 trillion is worth millions of jobs here at home, and it's about time we got that done.
And everybody agrees to it. Yeah, so I do think this, Tim, I think that corporate, you know, when you talk about the inversion, I think it's a very, very important subject. Doesn't sound exciting to people, but you have some major, major corporations looking to leave this country with thousands and thousands of jobs and great companies, and they're going to go to other places where the taxes, the corporate taxes are lower, and they have certain other advantages. We have to be smart in this country. We need somebody really great to be our next president. Thank you very much. I'll do it. We can't lose those companies. Can't lose those companies.
Carl Hedelson from Charleston asked a question. You know, we have a challenge with the size, the scope of the federal government. There are so many departments that need to be scrutinized: FDA, EPA, IRS.
Right.
One of the questions he has here is, where would you start scrutinizing the agencies? And can you name a couple?
Well, EPA is one that you saw a couple of weeks ago where they opened the door and the river is destroyed. You know, I mean, it wasn't even the people that did it. Colorado. But in Colorado, the river, beautiful river, all of a sudden turned gold and yellow, and people are saying, how long will this take? And it was the EPA that actually did it. The EPA would be one that you would certainly, at a minimum, cut way, way back and maybe get rid of entirely. You look at Department of Education, a guy like Bush likes Common Core. He likes Common Core. He wants your children in South Carolina to be educated. Think of it. He wants them to be educated through Washington, through the bureaucrats. And you have some nice people and good people, but how can you vote for somebody that that believes in Common Core? I go to Iowa, I go to New Hampshire, I go to South Carolina, I go to many, many places, including New York and including California, all over the place. And everybody agrees with me in this. And yet you have this massive behemoth, the Department of Education. You just can't have it. It's just ridiculous. I mean, you have local education where the parents can work with the teachers and the principals. That's what it's all about. And by the way, we're ranked number 25 in one poll and number 28 in another, the worst in the world. In other words, we are number 28 in the world. We're behind third world countries on education. So you know it's not working. You know that Common Core is a disaster. So we have all of these problems, and yet we're number one by a number that it's like double, I believe. You're double in terms of cost. So we spend the most per student by far, not even close, and yet we're number 25 and number 28 in the various rating polls. It's crazy. So Department of Education would be another one.
Excellent, excellent. Like that. Kimberly Ferguson from North Augusta has real concerns with the effects of the Iranian deal. What an awful atrocity on the world. It is awful, without any question. How do you intend to help protect Israel under a regime that is moving very quickly towards a nuclear bomb?
So the Iranian deal is one of the worst contracts I've ever seen of any kind, nothing to do with countries or anything. It's the most incompetently drawn document I think I've ever seen. It's a one-way street. It's going to lead to nuclear proliferation as sure as you're sitting there. It was done by people that don't have a clue, and it's a disgrace. We don't even get our prisoners back. I mean, in all fairness, can you imagine? We have 4 prisoners over there, and they don't even ask them. They said, we can't do that because we don't want to complicate the deal. We're giving them back. Think of that. You'd walk in if it's you. By the way, who would you rather have negotiating, Trump or those clowns that are negotiating right now, okay? Trump. I mean, honestly, they asked Kerry, you know, as he was recovering, the guy's in a bicycle race. He falls off a bicycle, 73 years old. He's in a race. He's got the helmet. He's got the whole deal. He's got patches. He falls off. He's our chief negotiator. He's in a bicycle race. I tell people, I promise if I'm president, I will never go into a bicycle race, I promise. You know why? I'll tell you what, I won't have time. I'll be working. I'll be working. But, you know, there's a couple of clauses. First of all, the 24 days everyone knows, but that doesn't even start, you know, the inspection period. That doesn't even start. The clock could keep it much longer than 24 days. These guys could clean up and you wouldn't know a damn thing, despite what they tell you. But there's so many elements. But one of the elements, when Tim mentions Israel, there's sort of a clause in there that nobody's really understanding, that if Iran gets attacked, we have to help them. Now you say, what if Israel attacks them? Are we supposed to be fighting Israel? This is the most incompetent agreement that anybody has ever seen. We will protect Israel totally.
Donald, you're alluding to, I believe it's section 10, where the language is ambiguous on what our responsibility is, and certainly some have drawn that conclusion. And I think it's very important for us to realize that the language of the Iranian deal in section 10 is ambiguous enough for the conclusion to be drawn that we may have a responsibility that we should not have, that we cannot have, especially when you think about Israel as perhaps the best partner we've had as a country. So I think your point is well said.
It's not even believable. But there is language in there, in theory, that we're supposed to come to the defense of Iran. You know, there's another agreement we have. I like Japan. We do a lot of business with Japan, great. Of course, it's totally unbalanced, and we have that huge trade deficit. But we protect Japan. We protect everybody. They don't do anything for us. Now, if we get attacked, Japan doesn't have to do anything. If Japan gets attacked, we have to go and fight for them. All our agreements are like that. We're run by people that have no clue. Think of it. If we get attacked, Japan can sit there and watch it on television, okay? That they make, by the way. We don't make them. It's true. But if Japan gets attacked, we have to defend them. All our deals are like that. You know, you take South Korea. I just ordered 4,000 television sets. They come from South Korea for a big job. They all come from South Korea. I mean, other than Sony, for the most part. It's Samsung, it's LG, it's all these companies. They're all from South Korea. A very big order, a lot of money going out. Now, every time North Korea opens, it's like, you know, he gets out and he starts screaming. He gets a little angry that day. He's got a little problem that day. We start up the ships. We start up the airplanes. We spend millions. We get nothing. We get nothing. When are we going to get smart? We have 28,000 soldiers sitting in between this, you know, this potential disaster. And it's one thing if we're reimbursed, but something has to happen. Somebody said to me, oh, what a horrible thing to ask for payment. They're making a fortune. We owe tremendous amounts of money. You know, we're up to 19 trillion. We can't protect the world. We protect Germany. Germany. How many people have a Mercedes-Benz? They're making a fortune. It's an economic behemoth. We get nothing. We protect Japan. We protect South Korea. We protect everybody. And they all think we're stupid. They think we're stupid. We're run, the fact is, other than Tim, we're run by very stupid people. Okay. Hard to believe. Hard to believe.
Speaking of things that are hard to believe, President Obama has just started the process of looking for ways to regulate the internet. And he's using legislation from the 1930s.
Yeah, I can see it.
If you look at our, if you look into our future, how important is the free market and the use of technology, and how bad of an idea is it for us to be using 1930s legislation to regulate the internet?
Well, free market is imperative on the internet, and frankly, the internet does cause problems because people are finding things out about us that they never knew before. You know, the hackers are genius, whether they're from Russia, from China, from even North Korea. They say that the movie studio was hacked from North Korea. They were doing the movie on, you know the story. Yes, and it's a very serious situation. The amazing thing is now they hacked 30 million people, many of them being government employees. That means probably you.
Yes.
Well, he's got nothing to hide. We don't worry about him, right, Mom? Yeah. Nothing to hide. But we worry about others, right? So they've hacked 30 million. The numbers vary from 10 million to 30 million to 35 million. And what happens? The government is going after the St. Louis Cardinals for hacking the Houston Astros baseball team. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? So we have our priorities a little mixed up. We have countries that are so sophisticated. And you know, one of the things we talk about immigration, because I want people to come into this country. I do want people. I want them to come in large numbers, but I want them to be legal. But I also want really high-end, smart, brilliant people to come in. Otherwise, we're going to lose our edge totally. And we're going to lose our job capacity and everything else. So when you graduate #1 in your class from Harvard, or Yale, or Princeton, or the Wharton School of Finance, or Stanford, and you want to stay in this country, you don't want to go back to China, you don't want to go back to Japan, you don't want to go back to Mexico, you don't want to go back, you want to stay in this country. We force you out. You're #1 in your class, you're a great student, you love the country, you want to stay here, you want to build. A case came up recently, a man from India went to a great school, good student, wanted to stay, could not get permission to stay. He started a company in India. He's got 5,000 employees now, and it's one of the hottest companies in the country. That could have been us. So we have to do, when you go through years of college, and this is something I think that a lot of people agree to, too. The thing with the Senate and the House, there's so many things that everybody agrees to, and it still doesn't get done. Who would not agree to this? Let them stay. Let them build their homes here. Let them build the businesses here. These are amazing people, and we force them to leave. So we have to change that. We have to change it fast. Let them work in Silicon Valley. We're going to lose our edge in Silicon Valley as sure as you're sitting there, because some of the greatest minds that we're educating are now going to other countries, and they're going to be competing against us. We don't want that.
Excellent. Staying on the jobs front, one of the amazing blessings of being a South Carolinian, and specifically living in North Charleston, is the presence of Boeing in South Carolina. My friend Jack Gowd has a question about the NLRB, who tried to destroy jobs.
Well, I know what you folks went through with that for years. It was terrible.
Talk to us about the right to work and the laws that we have.
You got to have right to work. You got to have right to work. What they put you through was incredible, actually. To think that Boeing almost could have said, "Hey, we're not coming."
Yes.
But you know, one of the other problems, I think an even bigger problem, I took it out, it was in the newspaper today, that Boeing is now going to build a massive plant in China. That China's ordering planes, but they want them to build a big, big plant in China. And I think that's going to have a huge impact. You know, it's sort of interesting. They can make their product in China and send it to us. But if we start sending product to them, they want us, and it's right here. I mean, they want us. Think of it. We have to build plants in China, but they don't have to do it here. So it's a very unfair situation. And I looked at that. I read that story today. It wasn't a huge story. To me, it's a huge story, though. But I read it with such great interest. They're ordering planes, but now Boeing is going to build massive airplane factories in China. I don't like that. I really don't like that.
I agree with that. We're down to our last 2 or 3 questions.
Good.
Are you going to stick around and talk to some folks afterwards?
All night. How about all night?
Is that all right with you guys? Excellent. Anthony Spann of Columbia asked a very business-driven question.
Okay.
What is the best decision you've made in your life, and what is your best decision you've made in business?
Well, maybe in terms of business decision, always family and children, and you know, we all, that's it. The children, you know, I have friends that are very successful, but they're not happy people. They're unbelievably successful. You read about them, you know who they are, but they're not happy people. Family is so important. Having a great family, a husband, a wife, children, is really more important. And I've seen it. I mean, I've seen everything. I've seen people with enormous wealth that have miserable home lives, and I've seen people with modest wealth, with not even a big, you know, with just a weekly income, that are really much happier people. And people say to me, oh, how do you become successful? How do you define success? I would say if a person's happy, that's more important than, you know, having billions of dollars in the bank and all. But I think one of the biggest decisions, one of the greatest decisions that I ever made was coming into Manhattan from Queens, because I lived in Queens with my parents. And I always wanted to build in Manhattan. And I came in and my father said, no, that's not our job. My father was a builder in Brooklyn and Queens. And we built middle income and low income housing. And I just wanted to be with the big buildings. I said, Pop, I want to build buildings in Manhattan. Look at those buildings. It was just something that was so exciting to me. And I left, and I ended up doing the Grand Hyatt Hotel on 42nd Street and Trump Tower and many, many buildings. Trump Palace. I have many buildings that I've done in Manhattan. And it's become, you know, just great. Now we're all over the world as a business. And one of the reasons people thought I'd never run is because they say, why would he want to do that? But I want to do it because I sort of feel that I owe something. I really feel that I owe something. I know we can turn it around. We can turn it around and make it truly great. So, thank you. So one of the things that I think maybe one of the biggest decisions when I said, no, Pop, I want to go into Manhattan. I want to build buildings in Manhattan. And that was a long time ago, but it's worked out. I'm very proud of it. And, you know, we built a great company.
I've seen a lot in the press recently about folks who believe that you have had challenging relationships with minorities. I would disagree. I mean, being one, to say, I thought that was funnier. Never mind. Anyways, let's go back to you. I know that today a small business owner in the audience, Dan Martin, who has an Allstate insurance agency in Charleston, heard that you were meeting today with the Minority Business Chamber. Yeah. That seems to be in opposition to this whole notion that you have a challenge with minorities. Would you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, my relationship with African-American people and businesses has been fantastic. And as you know, I spoke in front of the African-American Chamber of Commerce today and actually went there and then flew over here. It was fantastic. They are incredible people. My relationship's been great. And, you know, interestingly, a poll came out, and this is the second one I had, the shock poll. This just came out. Trump receives 25% of the black vote in general election. Amazing, right? Right? Yeah. Now, it's a great poll, and it's 25%. And actually, you were saying that generally speaking, a Republican candidate would receive what?
Romney took about 4%.
Yeah. 4 or 5%.
If you get to 25%,
the election's over.
It's over.
It's over. Oh, I'm telling you. And I'll tell you what, it's lucky I had the real poll in my hand. He would have really done a number of it. But you know, 25% of the black vote general election matchup, and that's an enormous number, and I think it's going to be higher than that. I've had a great relationship with the African-American community. I've had a great relationship with the Hispanics, and I've been saying I'm going to win the Hispanic vote, but because of the statements on immigration, a lot of people disagree with me on that. They came out with a poll recently in Las Vegas, in Nevada, the state of Nevada, where I won the state easily against all the Republican candidates, but I also won the Hispanic vote, and people were surprised. And I said, don't be surprised. You know, a lot of people, Hispanics, are here. They've gone through a long process. They're here, Tim, legally. They're here legally. They have their houses, they have their jobs. They don't want people flooding the country. They don't want this to happen. And so I'm doing very well. I think I'm going to win the Hispanic vote, and I tell that to people, and they laugh, and they can't believe it. But all of a sudden, they have these polls coming out where I'm actually doing very well with Hispanics. I hope to win. I've employed thousands of Hispanics. And right now, I mean, I have many, many places, thousands of Hispanics over the years and now. And I think I'm going to win that vote. So maybe it's a little bit different, but I will say African-American, great relationship. Hispanic, a really good relationship, and I think people are going to see that as we progress. One of the things that both groups really like is the fact I'm going to create jobs. Nobody's going to create jobs. I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created, and I've said that. And that's what people want.
Two questions, and then I'll let you close it up for us. One, an interesting question. The other one, your vision for the country. The first question, and don't answer it until I say the second question. First question is, who's harder to deal with? Real estate developers or politicians? One question.
Politicians are more dishonest. I always thought the real estate guys were the worst. Now, I've seen a great dishonesty in politics. I have. Not him. I've seen great dishonesty. You know, it's funny. It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. Get out of here, Tim. You know, it's a mixed bag. In politics, in real estate, everybody's very cutthroat of it. In politics, I've met some wonderful people, and I've met some really bad people, really dishonest people. And at some point, oh, we have to do a book on this stuff. I mean, we have to do a book. But I've met some great people in politics.
I'll think about it then. We'll think about it.
You know what is interesting? The media in politics, much different than the media in finance. Maybe finance is easier because it's a little more numbers-based. But I've met some wonderful people in the media and politics, but I've met some really dishonest media folks in having to do with politics. So it's, really a mixed bag. But actually, I think that politics is much more deceptive than business or real estate. It's much, much more deceptive. Not an easy life, I will tell you. That's why a lot of people said, what do you want to do this for? But it's not an easy life. I met some wonderful people, and I met some really bad dudes and people.
Good enough.
Are you shocked to hear that, by the way? No.
Last question. America has, in my opinion, for the last several years, been moving further and further apart. With Donald Trump as the President of the United States, how do you bring America together? How do we have one America?
So when President Obama was elected, I thought that, and I helped John McCain. Somebody said I voted for Obama. My enemies, they say, oh, but he voted for Obama. So ridiculous. I helped John McCain. He did a bad job. He didn't get elected. I helped Romney. He didn't get elected. I said, this time I'm going to do it myself, okay? It's true. No, I'm tired of it. I helped these people. Boy, I'm tired of it. Look, last time I thought we should have won. In all fairness, for McCain, it was tough because, they had the problems. And I think Abraham Lincoln maybe couldn't have been elected then. That was a tough one. But Romney should have won the last election. Something happened to him. He choked. Something happens. Like a golfer on the 18th hole, he can't sink the putt. So he was very disappointing. I mean, it was very sad, to be honest, because that was an election that should have been won. But I thought that President Obama, the one thing I felt he would be a great cheerleader for the country. And I thought he'd bring the country together. And honestly, there's probably a divide right now in the country, the likes of which we haven't seen for many years. You know it better than I do. And people talk about my tone and my temperament. I actually have a great temperament, and I will bring the country together. Jeb Bush was saying, his tone is not nice. He's not nice. And they're cutting off Christians' heads in Syria. They're cutting off their heads. He's worried about my tone is not nice. But I actually have a great temperament, and I have a temperament where I bring people together. And that even means countries. I mean, I don't think I'll have the problems with Putin that Putin can't stand Obama. Can't stand him. Nobody, people aren't liking him. And Obama doesn't like some of them too. But I think I will get along great on a world basis, and I think I'll also, which is important, and I think I'll also very much bring our country together. When you look at Baltimore, when you look at, I could name 10 cities, I'm not going to embarrass anybody by saying it, but the Baltimore thing was so bad. You look at what's going on in Ferguson and St. Louis, we've got to bring people together. We have to bring people. We need jobs. We need spirit. Maybe we need spirit just as much as we need jobs. But we're going to bring them together, and we're going to make our country great again. And I appreciate your being here. This is great.
Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump.